Hello and welcome to Elvenhome, and to this edition which concentrates on building of the viaduct. A Tool Time Tips returns to show you some of the cutting tools that I've been using to help me cut accurate curves on the viaduct. And I make a vain attempt at a running session trying to run the Duchess of Norfolk, which is a coronation class locomotive, with a full rake of 14 coaches. Oh, whoa. Anyway, something that is going rather better, the viaduct. So let's get on to where I've got to with that. Since the last video, as you can see, I've been happily working away, and it suddenly dawned on me I really should stop and show you where I've got to in building this. I'll put up here a short section from the last video, just so you can see where I had got the carcass to by the end of the last video. But as you'll see here, what we have is the canal lock already going through its portal. It's a really snug fit, which is a good thing, but it's a very, very obtuse angle. It's really quite tricky to pull off. But that will be, when it's sitting on the board, that will be where it will be, and the line will go off along across the board. As I said I would do, I cut the portals, were actually built square, you remember, and I've used the tool that I showed you last time, which is over here, this thing, let me bring it into camera, to cut the curves on the top. And what I'm going to do a bit later on, there'll be a brief return of Tool Time Tips as I show you two cutting tools that I bought to use, one of which I didn't use in the end, but which I can see could be useful. Both from the company Alpha, which is the company that I showed you a tool that I picked up from, oh, I can't remember his name now. Anyway, Phil from British Railway Modelling. I can't remember his surname, which was useful for cutting plastic, and I'll show you all three tools in the Tool Time Tips a bit later on. But before I get too carried away and have this all finished, I thought I'd show you a bit more of the detail of how it's been put together. So I'll just release it from here and move that out the way. Underneath, by the end of the last video, what I had put in is some strengtheners, which were these ones, which were just really to hold it together and start to give it some strength and to provide a bit more support for the deck. I didn't want that bowing as I was working on it. What I then did, as I said I would do, is to cut each of these sections in as bespoke. That was all cut from one length, so that the cuts down the centre would marry up as between the each section, but they were measured specifically to fit the gaps that had actually been cut. And I don't know, you probably can't see here, but if you get the light behind it, you can see through where the square goes over the top. If I turn these the other way up, you'll see that the portals are cut square. So those were the ones that were done first. But I worked along both sides together. So I did the inner one first, then the outer one, inner one, outer one, inner one, outer one. And there the outer ones are all in place as well. These joins, there's not much you can do about that because it's on a curve. It's quite tricky. So I'm going to disguise them in one of two ways. Either they will have downpipes coming across them, which I've looked on plenty of viaducts, and they do indeed have downpipes because they're obviously trying to get the water off the deck of the viaduct. So that would cover them. But I'm toying as we sit here at the moment, and I don't know whether by the time the video goes out I will have made my mind up. These you may have seen before. These are the York Model Railway coins, which are normally bent through 90 degrees to do the coins along the side of a wall. And I was thinking of using these on the side of the wall, and I may still do so. But I also quite rather like the look
of them as a detail, architectural detail. Let me move this around more to the camera. As an architectural detail along the wall. And I think if I positioned those just right, they might look quite good. Now, if I use them in the center, I think it would be overkill to then use them on the edges. And I do need to disguise where the card will come across and join up here. I don't think I'll be able to disguise it, but I'll have a look and see what occurs to me. What I'm doing now at the moment, and which I've already done for some of them, I've obviously done for here, is putting in the piece of strengthening card onto which the wall will actually go, because this is quite flimsy. And if there's not something underneath, then I think this will start bowing. But what this will do, this one's actually not the right size. Let me go to one that's the right size. It will give some backing on to just to support the wall so that we don't find it going all wobbly, which we don't want. Wobbly walls are generally, on the whole, thought not to be a good thing. So I'm slowly working my way through here. So I've done this one has been done, and I've got these remaining 3 to be done. And again, each one of these cards has to be cut specifically, because each is a slightly different distance, and you've got an inner curve and an outer curve, so you have to sort of, lots of fine tuning to get that in. So I've got those to finish off. Once those are finished off, I will then put the card in, the brick card, into position here. And once that's done, one more thing to say about the big one for the canal. Once that's done, I will then turn to the really tricky bit, which is how to put the undercroft of the arch in place. Now, I don't know if I showed this in the last one. Here it is. An idea struck me to make use of. Let me bring this up to the camera. This is a piece of the Redutex or Redutex. I think that one is, yes it is, it's a slate. It's a rounded slate, which I've used on other things. But as an idea, I think that kind of textured, not using the slate, I'll show you what I'm actually going to use. And the idea that struck me was to put it on some very thin card, because it's quite thin itself usually. Stick it on some thin card. You can heat this to take a shape. And if I can find something that is 1 inch diameter, I could put this and wrap it round it and then use a heat gun to actually give me the shape that I need. And that would then fit in here. This is, oh, well, that was useful. If I just squeeze this in here, it's very roughly the right sort of idea. But you see, that sits in there rather nicely, doesn't it? And I think it would make a good undercroft. Now, the only thing I had to do was find the right kind of stone to do that. And I haven't even taken it out of the packet yet, but I'll show you what's here. This is the Redutex Stone Block Light Grey. And I'm going to make my mind up whether I will have it running that way across the arch, or maybe running that way, so that will, let's get this right, the arch, the loop would be that way. I think that might look quite good, rather than the bricks running that way. So we'll have a go with that. But I think that will give me a really good look of an undercroft. And I do like Redutex. I think it's jolly good stuff. I think I got that from, oh, can't remember. I'll put a link at the end where I got that Redutex from. Rails of Sheffield have started doing it, but they didn't do that one. And I think it was DCC Supplies that I got it from. I'm pretty sure it was. So that's what I've got to. So I've got to finish off doing the supporting walls for all these 3 portals. Make my mind up on the exterior decoration, and also settle which way I'm going to have that stone for the Undercroft and get that in. And what I will do is that when this is in place, I'm going to put a piece, as I said I wanted, a kind of lintel or a plinth, so it looks as though a plinth comes out the side of the wall, and that will allow the Undercroft stone to rest on it, and I hope that will make sure that the join looks fine. The only other thing I said I would mention, with this, it's such a tight, this is the one for the canal, it's so tight that I'm only going to put card down to the level of the lock wall, because that's rather good. The lock wall is nice and butting up against the card, and I don't need brick all the way down to the bottom. It's a bit of a waste, but it might also actually make it too narrow, which would not be good. So that's quite a long section on where I've got to so far, but that's because I've done a lot of work and there's still a lot to be done. So when you come back, what I hope to have done is to complete all the work on the arches, other than possibly putting the Undercroft stone in, because I'd like to show you how I actually go about doing that. So what we'll go on to now is a tool time tips, showing you the cutting tools that I've bought to help me do some of this work.
Well, a brief return of tool time tips. The last video I mentioned that I'd purchased some cutting equipment to help me with cutting, in particular, the curves of the arches into the plastic, and I promised that I would show you me actually using them. There were 2 new tools that I bought, which are the 2 ones on the outside here. This one I've included simply so the 3 plastic cutting things that I have specifically are all in one edition of Tool Time Tips. This one I saw, I can't remember how I came to see it. Phil Parker, who, that was a name I couldn't remember before, from British Railway Modelling, demonstrated it in one of the, that's right, it was in one of the videos from the digital edition of BRM. And I've shown this before. This has a blade at the top end here, if I bring it up. Come on, into focus, thank you. And as you can see, it's quite pointy and sharp. And you can use this to score quite heavy grade plastic and then snap along the lines, and it does a really good job of giving a nice clean cut. I find using bladed tools, particularly if they have a bevel on them, that it will cut through, but you're left with a slight angle on the cut, which means that things don't always butt together well. Using this, I've not had that problem, and it's score down a couple of times at most, and then you can usually cut along the length of the score, and that will break the plastic in two. I have demonstrated me using this, I think, in previous editions. These are all, as it happens, by the same company, Olfa, O-L-F-A. And I have to say, it's a pretty good range of kit that they have. These are not specifically for modelling as such. This one, in fact, I think is principally intended for people like dressmakers who may need to cut either through fairly thin cloth or plastic, or their paper patterns, and who need the ability to be able to move along lines, which is what this does. It's got a switch on it there to help you keep the blade out or in. This is quite a sharp blade on the end. And I bought it because I thought I might use it to cut the curve of the deck of the viaducts. As it turned out, it's actually quite hard. It's okay going down once through a curve, and it does a good job. It will cut a curve. It'll cut a curve through this plastic, for example. I mean, let's see if I can do it. It won't do it now, will it? But if, for example, we wanted a curve along here, just run that through, and then we'll bend it through the line. There we go. Now, I think you would struggle to do that with a with a scalpel as easily. With a bit more pressure, it might have gone through more, but that is with a piece of plastic card. And as you see, it's given me a really nice curvy line, which I wouldn't be able to get in any other way. I'm not entirely sure when I would need to curve into brickwork curvy lines like that, but if I felt the need, I could, and I could make some wonderful avant-garde buildings. I'm pleased I've got it. I think I can see me using it to create a shape around which I would then build. But I did find that it's really difficult to be able to do two lines. If I'd tried to follow that line a second time, it would be really hard to do, and you would find that you would get a different cut at some point. But it is a really useful tool for making cuts where you can go at it in one go to create a pattern of that kind. The one that I really want to spend time on is this. You've seen the viaduct, you've seen the brickwork and all the arch tops that have been cut. This was all cut, those arch tops, using this. And this means that each viaduct top, each arch top, is exactly the same diameter. The arc is on the same diameter of a circle. It comes with its protective thing. I'm not quite sure what it is. It's a protective thing, which doubles also as the store for the other blades. Comes with, I think, 5 or 6 blades, and you can actually get it off as well sometimes. There we go. There we go. And what's that in there? There's 5 blades in there. So it comes with the 5 new blades, and it also has in here, if I take that out, this is felt on one side, and it's plastic on the center with a, if I get it in the lights, you can see it's got the cross on it, and that's to enable you, when you can't put purchase into the thing you're cutting on, to provide a purchase for this pin. And very simply, you just set this to whatever radius you want for your curve. And then, let's see if we can get this to work. Obviously, you would measure, you have to measure out exactly so you've got your curve happening in the right place. And I'm just doing this to show you. You place that in there, and I've set this blade in, just so you know. You can set the blade in for whether you're right or left-handed. So obviously, all you people that go around the world working back to front, that is right-handed, will have your blade set so that it's the opposite way. Because naturally, obviously, as a left-hander, I turn it to the left. So you would just put the weight on the pin, and then you just drag this through your line. Oh, that's keep the weight on the pin, he said. And then I found that you needed to drag it twice through the plastic, and you'll see that it has cut the plastic. Let me just cut this off here. And that's put the cut in, and similarly, obviously, on the other side, you have the arch or curve or whatever it is you're trying to cut. A couple of things in using it. You saw one of them there. You have to keep your weight down on the pin, because if the pin moves, your curve is going to start getting a bit more avant-garde.
The other thing I found is you must tighten this really tight. Otherwise, as you're putting your weight down, this will start creeping to the right. But those two things set aside, it's really handy if you're scratch building and needing to put curves in things. And as you can see, I mean, that presumably, well, I think you would struggle to actually cut a circle if you had to, or a curve as narrow as that, because you need a little bit of space. I would think something around there would be about the smallest you could do. But obviously you can cut a complete circle if you wanted. If you needed to cut a circle for a window, say, you would be able to do that using this. It's rather nifty, and I was pleased to have got it. I'm not getting any money for this. I bought all these with my my own money, and I'll put a link in the video below to the page on Alpha, so you can go and have a look at the what these two ones are. And then shop around is my advice, because you won't always get it cheapest from the manufacturers. But those were some really useful cutting things that have helped me in building the Viaduct, and I thought I'd pass those on. And that is the end of Tool Time Tips. I've got to record this quickly because I'm trying to control 5 trains at once. The YouTube gods decided that it would be quite good fun to allow the Duchess of Norfolk to smash into the platform, which it did, as you saw. So in retaliation, I am now trying to run 5 trains at once. That's the 2 4Fs, the 2 Ginties and the Pannier, and talk to you. And I'm losing the battle. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and that if you've got things up, we're just about to have a crash. No, we're not. I hope you've enjoyed the video. There is more to come on the Viaduct. I had in fact recorded more, but I didn't want to have too much of just me talking. So I decided to run some trains, and I'm beginning to regret it. If you've liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you've not subscribed, well, please do. And please do let me have your comments. And I shall get on with doing the Viaduct. And I hope to actually achieve what I set myself, which was to try and get it all finished by the end of June, because then I will start removing the scene you can see in front of you of the Viaduct and the gasworks, and we can start doing a change. But now, before I have yet another crash, I think I'd better call this a day.
So until I speak to you again in about a couple of weeks' time, that's goodbye from me. Bye bye.